Okay, in this one, I would like to show you a couple of ideas about different methods of creating content inside your OneNote digital notebook. So within our home tab, so let me create a new page. Okay, so now I have a new page, and let's see, I'm going to talking about inserting, creating content is really what I'm thinking about right now. Okay, so from the home tab, these are your typical font modifiers. Okay, so I can just start creating content by typing. So now notice that I have all of the typical Microsoft editing tools. So I have my built-in spell checker. I can change my font size and color in the ways that I normally could in any other Microsoft product. Notice that if I'm typing, it might not line up beautifully with those rule lines. So having just blank page might work better if I'm typing, kind of a personal choice there, but I tend to like the lines if I'm writing with a stylus, and I tend to prefer the blank page if I'm typing. But so you can definitely type. I've already mentioned a couple of times and shown a few examples about how you can draw. Remember that a passive stylus is one that is just capacitive. So back in one of the previous videos, I talked about and showed the difference between a passive capacitive, i.e. universal stylus, which are very affordable. I bought 3 of them for, I think it was $12. So these are very affordable and they work better than your finger would, but they don't open the full functionality of OneNote the way that an active capacitive pen would be. And don't just buy any one, make sure that it is designed to work with the computer that you're using. I am working on a Lenovo Yoga ThinkPad that was issued by CPS to students as take-home devices during the summer of 2020. So that's why this pen is what is featured here, because I looked it up and that was the recommended pen. I bought it and I've tested it and it's working great. Okay, so back to creating content. So a stylus can definitely help, especially an active capacitive stylus. I have already showed lasso select a couple of times. Eraser could be another kind of one of the things that happens real naturally with, especially with a stylus. But if I go to draw and I turn on draw with touch, right now I'm using my finger. And so if I want to draw something with my finger, I can certainly do the same kinds of changing of colors and highlighter and drawing with a finger or with a universal stylus. So there we go. I need to turn off draw with touch so I can scroll now. Now if I turn draw with touch back on, now I'm using a universal stylus and universal. Now if I want to do the eraser, I need to go click on the eraser in order to erase. But with a little bit of practice, you can get used to it and you can create pretty decent work with just a universal stylus or your finger. Using the active pen, this is much more like writing with an actual pen on paper, because the big deal here is that it has palm recognition, which means that as I bump the screen with my palm or other parts of my hand or my wrist or my other hand, it doesn't think I'm trying to write, right? So if we have draw with touch on and I'm using one finger over here and then I bump over here with my other hand or my wrist, it thinks I'm writing. And that for me is very difficult. Whether you're using an active stylus, a passive stylus, or no stylus at all, you can use the mouse pad. So now I've switched to the mouse pad. And if I click on eraser with my mouse pad, I can erase. I can use my mouse pad to draw. It's just hard. Most people are not very good at using, there we go, using the mouse pad to try and draw. If I were to plug in or connect a wireless mouse, it'd be a little bit better, but not a whole lot better. So I don't really recommend that. But the erasing is not too bad. We can use lasso select. Again, I'm still using a mouse pad. So if I want to grab something that I have drawn or written, it can be selected and moved around the page. It can be resized, which is super convenient. Let me erase some of this. So if I wanted this whole thing, there we go, to fit, maybe that drawing needs to go there. So one way, if you're working with draw with touch or if you're working with a stylus that is not an active stylus, is you can draw bigger. So if you make something much bigger than you expected it to be, but that way you're able to do it neatly, and then you lasso select and shrink it down. That can be a way to work around it. Again, still using the mouse, I can grab this text box and either edit the text same way that I would in any other program, or change the appearance of the text. So we can use the same type of styles, built-in headings, page titles, etc., which help understand content and also works really nicely with anyone who is using a screen reader. So if you're creating content in OneNote, you can use all of that same functionality that you would be able to do in other word processing programs. Okay, ink to text. Let me show you that because it's pretty cool. I think I mentioned highlighting already, as well as I alluded to earlier that we've got shapes. Let me just add another page here. And I don't need any rule lines. Okay, I'm going to flip over into flat down. I'm not actually switching to tablet mode, but I am physically using the computer as a tablet at the moment. So using an active stylus, actually, I'm going to go ahead and keep my default with the lines. So we can say something like maybe this is going to be section 1.2. Nope, I mean 2.2. 2.2 notes. Now notice that even though I wrote that by hand down here, it was able to read my handwriting pretty well in order to understand that this is actually 2 notes that I'm trying. I'm fine with it being in my handwriting, but if I wanted it to be text, if I lasso that, and I missed the first letter, so I'll try that again. And then if I right click and choose my drop down, or it's up here, I can say ink to text. And because it was able to read what I've written there, it was able to change it to text. So now as I'm going through and let's say I'm pre-reading a section before class and taking my own notes before a lesson, maybe there's a big idea here that I need to know about, and my pen is too fat. I'm going to change this. We'll go to a smaller pen. There we go. Maybe I need to know about the vertical line test. And the vertical line test is telling me that a set of points in the XY plane, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so I've got more information for that, but I'm writing on it the same way that I would with notebook paper. I think that it's probably best for this to stay in my handwriting, but if my handwriting is neat enough that the computer can recognize it, which a lot of us have handwriting that is neat enough, then you can try the ink to text, and it does a pretty good job. I'm going to hit undo. Let's say I ended up with just a whole bunch of garbage. It could not read my handwriting. We could say undo. There is also this ink to math functionality. So if we have something like, let's say that we're talking about the Pythagorean theorem. And after I define what these letters mean, if I want to say something like a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where really I'm saying that a side squared and a side squared has the same length when put together as the hypotenuse squared. Let's see what happens if we try ink to math. So it gives us a preview of what we're going to get, and it shows me my actual handwriting. So sometimes some of my letters are not quite what I expect. So I might have written a C, but it got so much hook that it read it as an E. So you can choose particular things here that didn't end up quite the way you wanted them, and you get a real quick preview of what that's going to be. So if I say insert, now I have an equation. If I try that down here and see how this one goes, ink to text. So this one turned out to be a hot mess, right? It did not understand at all what I was trying to say. So if I try this again, it's still not really giving me what I want. Okay, so it might work for us well on some things, not work so well on others. That's okay. we can also insert equations. And so if we insert equations, so math and science teachers here, this is going to work the same way as the Microsoft editor, the equation editor in other programs. So if I am typing here and I might need, I'm still in a tablet mode, so I might need to pop up my keyboard, or I can open my computer back up and use my keyboard. But all of our equation editor tools that we could use in Word or PowerPoint, you can use in OneNote as well. All right. So ink to text, lasso select, we got those things. Okay, inserting, screen clippings, file attachments, etc. All right, so let's say that as we're going through our work here, there's in the textbook that I just flipped open, has us reading some examples, and then it says, now work problem 11. So if there is a physical textbook in front of you, you can take a photo of problem 11 and insert it into OneNote. Certainly you could copy problem 11 into OneNote. We could also use screen grab utilities. So remember that we have the snipping tool built in. So this is one way to do it, or we can just say new and grab a screenshot and say copy and then paste. And so now I have an image that is a screenshot of problem 11. So I can come over next to this and I can work out find f of 0. So maybe I'm saying, okay, this is problem 11. And then the first thing I need to find f of 0. And f of 0 is that point right there. So I know that that has a value of 3. Okay, so that's one way that we can do it. And I used that using the snipping tool. Another thing that we can do in insert, notice it has the screen clipping utility. So if we say screen clipping, and then I use screen clipping to do it. So this is from within OneNote. I get the same basic idea of an image that has been copied from the internet. One potential advantage that we have from this is that OneNote does add this little tag right here, telling you when you took that screen clipping. So it timestamps it for you a little bit. So if you have an internet page that you're monitoring and things are changing on it from time to time, it can give you a reminder of when that data was from. Okay, let's say you're monitoring data changing over time. So that is insert screen clipping. You can certainly insert pictures as well as online pictures. You can create links. This is really very simple, right? You just copy paste the link that you want in there and you include the text that you want it to show. Very intuitive. You can record audio and take notes at the same time, in which case if you were to play back your audio, it would show the notes. So if, for instance, you were recording a live meeting with someone and taking notes during that meeting and you were, you asked permission for the recording ahead of time, you could play it back and listen to it and it would highlight your notes as you go. I'm not sure how useful that is outside of a large college lecture hall or a meeting, but that's what it's there for, which is pretty cool. You can certainly insert a time or date stamp anytime you want, equations and symbols. All right, this file printout and file attachment thing I want to mention. Let's say that I want our PDF calendar of the school year to end up in my OneNote. So if I have either a PDF or just like a page full of frequently asked questions, right? Something, or a document. Right now, both of these are internet sources, but that's just because I'm working with a computer that is kind of fresh and clean and doesn't really have any files on it yet. But if I had a file that I wanted to put in here or an internet source like either of these, the OneNote printer is already installed. So if you click File, Print, and right now I could print to PDF, but I can also send to OneNote. So if I want to send this to OneNote, and this was the default before I changed it to something else earlier, but so send to OneNote, and you could choose, some pages, all pages. This is just a one-page calendar at the moment. If I say print, it's going to take a moment, and then my OneNote down here, notice how my OneNote icon is starting to like blink at me for my attention. If I come look at that, it's saying, hey, you're trying to insert a printout. Where do you want me to put this printout? Well, since it's a school calendar, I probably don't want it in the middle of my math notes, so I might want it in this general section. So if I had lots of pages, so remember in my chapter 1, I do have lots of pages, I could put it in a specific spot, but I just want this in my general section. So I'm going to say general, and we'll say okay. And now I have my printout of that PDF. And so this is, I can draw on it. You know, I can say, okay, this is going to be my certain days that I'm doing this, that, or the other. I don't know. Or maybe I want to highlight when semester exams are, or just make notes to myself about due dates, or just have access to the calendar, right? Probably I will want to change the title on this, because anywhere I put in my title up here automatically shows over on the right-hand side. So when I'm browsing for things, it's easy for me to find that specific information. Quick reminder that you could, if you thought you were going to be printing this out with any regularity, you could change it to a letter size. Now notice when I do that, I do get a bit of a heads up here that this is kind of hanging over the edge. So if we go to File, Print, Print Preview, then by default, it wants to put this thing into 2 pages. See that? And so that's something that you kind of have to be careful with. That's why I like to have my pages set on 8.5 by 11, so I'm never surprised when it's time to print. When it's time to print, in my head, I'm done. I just want to print and be done with it. I don't want to have to go back and reformat. So I like to set up formatting defaults ahead of time so that when in my head I'm done with something and ready to print, I don't have to mess around with formatting. So if I have my defaults so that I am using 8.5 by 11 in everything, remember that was the default I set over here in my math notes. But either way, if you change it here to 8.5 by 11, then you get a true size, you know, a true like real vision of what you're looking at on your page. But again, the point of this was the resource of insert. And I didn't actually use insert, I used print. So let me show you how the insert works. So if you're, you know, working along the internet and you find this thing that you want to put in OneNote, print is a very easy way to do it. We can also, and again, print would work from something that wasn't a PDF as well. So right now I'm looking at a list of frequently asked questions. So if we do print like this and I send that to OneNote, again, my icon will start blinking at me down at the bottom when it's ready. There we go. And I would like to put this in my general section as well. Because that's a bigger document, took a little bit more of a moment to do it. And I'm going to call this the FAQ. Now notice that because this was a multi-page document, it created page sub-pages. So these are all grouped together, which is really nice. But I still haven't inserted. So let me insert. Let's say I take this calendar and I just download the calendar for a moment, okay? And I will save this to my desktop. Okay, so now I have an actual file on this physical computer. And if I wanted to insert this actual file, I could say either File, Printout, and go grab the file that I want. Or I can say File, Attachment, and go grab the file that I want. File Printout is going to do the exact same thing that printing from the source did. File Attachment gives me a choice here in a moment. So if I say Insert, if I do Insert Printout, again, that'll be the exact same thing as the File Printout button or what you saw me do already, printing from online. If I say Attach File, then that basically creates a link to the file itself. Okay, so maybe what I want is I want somewhere in, let me create a new page. Maybe I'm going to use my template, my notebook paper. That's the page I'm going to use. There we go. Okay, so let's say this is notes from my orientation. Okay, and in my orientation, I learn about who my teachers are, And maybe I learn about what the remote schedule is going to look like and all kinds of stuff. And I'm taking notes and I'm drawing pictures of relevant things. And I've highlighted, hey, I need to make sure that I take care of this, that, or the other, whatever. If there is a file that I want to link in here, maybe the file exists for something else. Maybe I've been given a copy of the map, or in this case, I've got the calendar. So we'll do that again. File attachment. And if I find my file and say insert, and I want to attach the file, then I have a link, okay? And so what this link is doing is it knows where that file is located on my computer. So it's not showing it here, but it's giving me easy access to it. So if I wanted to open that file, I can double click on it and it will go find that file on my computer. See how up here it's linking to the C drive where this file, where I downloaded it, where I saved it. Okay, so this is not currently viewing online. This is just, it opened up by default in the Edge browser. While I'm on the Edge browser, just kind of a side note, you can use the draw utility within the Edge browser. So whether you totally get into OneNote or not, if you open up something in the Edge browser, you can use this utility to draw on it, which can be really, really convenient. Remember that once you do that, you can print it either to OneNote, of course, or as a PDF with your annotations on it. So for instance, if you're ever given worksheets or some kind of fill in that you're expected to print out and write on, you can write on it on your computer and then save it as a PDF. So that's really just a side note, but it's a nice feature of having these take-home machines. Excuse me. Sorry if I just coughed loudly in your ear. Okay, let me make sure I got everything I wanted here. Screen clipping, we mentioned, file attaching. All right, so the last little thing that is just worth mentioning is that we can insert tables and we can insert spreadsheets. And they are a little bit different. If you just want to format the way that something looks, using table would be the same type of functionality that you would see in a Word document, where the table just makes things look nice. If you insert a spreadsheet, then you're using more of an Excel worksheet. So you're going to have all the functionality of Excel. So again, that creates lots of very usable tools within the OneNote software. Okay, I think that I have muttered over all of these things, and the best way to get comfortable with them is to experiment with them, to try and do an assignment using OneNote, to try and create a lesson plan using OneNote. Because as you learn to do different things, you will figure out more and more. And this video was already too long, so thanks.